No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 399. And breaking today, Reform UK chooses a Muslim candidate to run against Sadiq Khan to become the next mayor of London. In my view, a depressing capitulation to Islamism, no matter how much you might like the woman herself, Laila Cunningham, whose Egyptian parents emigrated to London.
The average American doesn't want to have any military tension or war with Europe. Oh, no.
They don't care, James.
No, they do. That's why they've been pretending that we've got all sorts of problems with Muslims and immigrants and Sadiq Khan in London and all of the rest of it, designed to portray Europe as being in need of American intervention or American help, with Lord Haw-Haws and Lady Haw-Haws, from Farage to little Tommy Ten Names, all joining in.
We need to get rid of Khan.
As Nigel has said, today we are announcing that I'm standing to be the next Mayor of London. Now, I know that we're still 2.5 years away, but the election on May 7th is the first step. It's the first step to reclaiming our city. Now, these local elections, I tell everyone, will be a referendum on Sadiq Khan, on Labour's broken London.
In my digest next, I'll make it clear why I think this is a huge mistake from Nigel Farage. The Christian capital needs a Christian mayor to save it from Khan's destruction. And by the way, that isn't racist. A sickening claim made against me by the Sun's failed US TV host Harry Cole today, so I will respond to all of that shortly. Also today, an Islamist takeover of the British police that the British Bashing Corporation and MSM are determined to bury.
I think this is the first time specifically that you've asked for that detail. Well, that's what we tried. That's what we tried to get across.
Absolutely outrageous.
This is the first time that you.
I think to be clear, we have wanted to get to the bottom of this and understand why the decision was taken that you did. We would like very much for you to be able to demonstrate to us that this was done entirely on a risk-based matter for public safety.
We now have categorical proof that those in charge of law enforcement are obsessed with locking up white Christians like Lucy Connolly while letting the Muslim mob rule the roost.
Free Palestine, fuck India.
But I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but a sense of the anger, I think you can hear there.
Yeah, Katie, I think Becky.
Ta'ala destroys all those who are oppressing our brothers and sisters in Gaza.
And yet that dangerous cretin, Slippery Starmer, now wants to send British troops to fight for the corrupted Ukrainian regime. You can bet your bottom dollar it won't be the Islamists lining up to fight.
Along with President Macron and President Zelensky, we agreed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces in the event of a peace deal. Mr. Speaker, we will set out the details in a statement at the earliest opportunity.
We'll get the verdict of our superstar panel shortly. Independent broadcaster Leo Kearse and the activist Kelly J. Keane. Also coming up on the show today, we are watching the death of the MSM in real time, folks. This is so good. As Left Wing Good Morning Britain studio shrinks on Woke ITV and Channel 5's Vanessa pretends to be a podcast. And the BBC, the British Bashing Corporation, goes to war with its most successful comedy discovery, Ricky Gervais. Then, in the uncancelled after show over on Substack, Meghan Markle's as ever disaster has been exposed in excruciating detail as the fake Duchess launches a pathetic MSM fight back. We'll reveal the truth with US royal sensation P. Dynett. You can sign up to watch at www.outspoken.live. Greatest Britain Union Jackass back today. Here are your nominees. You can vote in the YouTube live chat. Jeremy Corbyn, nominated by It's Only Me 44, as he refused to accept Maduro was not Venezuela's legitimate leader when he should have been out of the presidential palace on the 10th of January last year. Mike Tapp, the Labour minister, nominated by Sarah Booth for being roasted on multiple TV shows regarding immigrants' phones being confiscated voluntarily. And Craig Guilford, we'll be coming to him later in the show, Chief Constable of the Midlands Police, nominated by MC Blokey Bloke, who says, what is most frightening is I do not think they see anything wrong in what they did. So, a controversial one today. Let's go. I don't want a second Muslim mayor of London. There, I have said it. I have outlined my position robustly on X as well after Nigel Farage announced the practicing Muslim Laila Cunningham will be Reform UK's candidate to run against London's failed Islamist mayor Sadiq Khan at the next election. So, not surprisingly, I have been accused of all sorts today, especially, disappointingly, from some of those in the Conservative movement. But to think that embracing Islamism on the right is the only way to save London from an Islamist takeover, from the Islamist Khan, well, to me, that is deeply depressing. And I don't even think this should be a controversial position on the British right. It's also not to say that Laila Cunningham herself doesn't make some brilliant points when she appears regularly on GB News, but she has also never been asked once on GB News about the impact of her faith on politics. So I just want to be very clear on my position. We are a Christian country. We need a Christian in charge of the capital to save it from the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, to save it from the out-of-control crime driven by illegals, to save it from the mosques of East London, which are radicalising British-born innocents to become women-hating, gay-hating, Western-hating suicide bombers. And that is no exaggeration, by the way. For those on the conservative right in the UK criticising me today, I want to ask, do you also criticise American conservative figures, including Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk, for taking the exact same position? Watch.
Dare I also say, a radical cultural orthodoxy that is going to be introduced into America's largest city. One that will not make it a safe place for Jews, not a safe place increasingly, I think, for Western values and potentially Christians. And to say that you are in favor of boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel in America's most Jewish city, and it's just a coincidence that that guy happens to be Muslim, yeah, I think that's complete rubbish. And final point I'll say is this, is that London is a captured city. I don't know if you've been there recently, Megyn, but awful. It is a husk of its former self. It is terrible. And I don't like the fact that I go to Piccadilly Square and I see more Arabic than I see English, that I see more stores that are Yemen, Omani, Saudi Arabian. That is a conquered and a captured country. And Mamdani has to run on his own merits. He's his own individual person. But he has not given any indication that he is anything but a radical socialist and someone that is trying to continue the Mohammedan march in the West. Individual Muslims can be great members of American society. We all know them. But in the macro, in the big picture, are we really benefiting the more that we are importing Islamists into the West? I say no, and I think we should have a lot of caution making a Muslim socialist the mayor of America's largest city.
I have a problem with Islam. I do. I think it's totally incompatible with Western values, and I don't think people who practice Islam should be the leaders of America. I just don't. That's how I feel, and I'm entitled to that belief. Because Islam is more than a religion. It is a political ideology. I mean, Islam, people sometimes couch it as political Islam. All of Islam is political Islam. That's the truth. And we can't be afraid to say it. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just not consistent with Western values. It's not. They're not pro-free speech. They're not pro-women. And they're not pro-separation of church and state, like we in America are. We view the interference of religion in governance much, much differently than your average Muslim does, even your non-radicalized Muslim. That's what's true.
Very sensible, right? From Megyn Kelly, my good friend in the US independent media. But apparently, sharing that position makes you an extremist racist here in the UK. And in a sign of how they intend to fully embrace rather than fight Islam, with Zia Youssef, I believe, being lined up as the UK's first Muslim Prime Minister, Nigel Farage deployed Reform UK's own Muslim candidate, Laila Cunningham, at a major press conference announcement this morning. Watch.
We need to get rid of Khan. We need a new mayor of London. And today's press conference is about launching our candidate to stand for mayor of London, but also the person that will be the face and the campaigning force around all 32 boroughs as we head in to those May the 7th elections. Laila Cunningham has already proven in her time with us as a party to be articulate, to be passionate, a mother, somebody who actually herself has had to effectively, in the absence of the police, act as a police officer herself in defence of her children. And she, from this moment on, will be the head of Reform UK London, our candidate for the mayor next year, but the face of our campaign as we fight a strong, vigorous campaign in all 32 London boroughs in the run-up to May the 7th.
As Nigel has said, today we are announcing that I'm standing to be the next mayor of London. Now, I know that we're still 2.5 years away, but the election on May 7th is the first step. It's the first step to reclaiming our city. Now, these local elections, I tell everyone, will be a referendum on Sadiq Khan, on Labour's broken London. It's Londoners' chance to vote out every councillor who's propped him up and stayed silent while he's let our city down. From now until May, I will be spearheading our campaign, touring every borough, because for the first time in years, Londoners finally have a real alternative: Reform.
And yes, I agree, Reform UK is an alternative to Labour. But with Cunningham as the mayoral candidate, is it really an alternative to the threat of Islamism, which is destroying London? The truth is, none of us know the extent to which Laila is committed to her faith, or whether her faith will influence any of her political decision-making if she were elected. As a Reform UK insider told me today, now not supportive of Laila Cunningham, by the way, they sent me this picture. She used to be, this is their words, she used to be a former Guardian and DEI poster girl under her previous name of Layla Dupay. She was a huge One Nation Tory and prosecuted people for hate crimes. So I think there is a lot we don't know about Laila Cunningham. I'll come to what she has been asked about her faith in just a moment. But I asked her on the show today, she didn't accept the invitation because I need to find out. I need to find out what parts of Islam she accepts, how much she is driven by her faith. And not one question was asked at the Reform press conference today about the Islamist threat our capital faces. Indeed, it was just a bunch of the usual MSM journalists asking Farage about Trump taking over Greenland, as if that matters more than our own capital city. Oh, and a question about Tommy Robinson, of course. Watch.
Tommy Robinson said last night he plans to sue you for libel. Do you have any response to that, please?
Goody gumdrops. I look forward to it enormously. Thank you.
Just remember, if you're a Tommy Robinson supporter, that is how Reform UK feels about you. Reform UK did finally acknowledge the destruction of lifting the two-child benefit cap today, which is all about encouraging an Islam takeover of our population.
On the two-child cap, look, I regret that my comments have been so willfully misinterpreted. I tried to say something that was pro-family, which I know hasn't been heard from any party in decades. I was trying to be pro-family, pro-children, pro-working people who find it very, very hard to pay for childcare. It's a disincentive for them to have children and to go to work at the same time. So look, I think the way this government is doing it, well, looking at some of the stats, it's going to start to benefit huge numbers of foreign-born people. And that goes back to this point. We have to prioritise British-born people, whether it's for child benefit or whether it's for social housing. And so I think when it comes, we will vote against it.
I mean, of course. But your people, Nigel, like Isabel Oakeshott, were attacking us just a few weeks ago for saying exactly that. Predictably, The Guardian today did manage to slip in a question to Laila Cunningham about London's diversity. Watch.
London is considered to be one of the most diverse and successfully multicultural cities in the world. Do you think it's too diverse?
Do you want to have a go at that?
Yeah, so of course it's the most diverse. My parents came here in the 60s from Egypt. It's not about diversity. What I find is, so when my parents came in the 60s, immigration was in the tens of thousands, and when it's so little, you have to integrate, right? Even if you don't want to, but my parents did. But what you found in certain parts of London is that immigration is too much, and when it's too many, they dominate. And you do have certain parts of London where people who were born in that area, grew up there, do not feel it's their part anymore. It doesn't feel like London. And that is a problem. But in terms of diversity, no, it's great, it's diverse, we're doing well, but we have to all operate under the umbrella that it is a British city and it's a British country. And people that come to London have to embrace British culture. You don't come to London expecting London to change for you. And I find that some people come, expect it to change for them, and when it doesn't change for them, they say we're racist. There's absolutely nothing racist about that. It's called patriotism. And if you come here, you've got to be on board with that.
Now, there were things there that Laila said that I completely agree with. But notice when mentioning the issues of integration, she didn't specifically refer to Islam. She mentions folk not rightly recognising London anymore. So what is Laila's ideal vision of London?
When I was growing up, London was the place to live, the place to work, the place to build a life. People envied those that lived here. Now they pity us. They say, ooh, London's a bit too dangerous for me. People were proud to say they were Londoners. We said it with warmth, with belonging. Sadly, today I speak to so many people who are leaving. So many families who are moving out because they fear for their kids, because their kids have repeatedly been mugged, targeted. To businesses who are shutting down because they can't afford the shoplifting. Investors who are going elsewhere. Sadly, our young people that I speak to no longer dream of moving to London. They're scared of it. They see young men are stabbed for their watches or jackets in broad daylight. That's not normal. But we're told to accept it. But for me, it will never, ever be acceptable. Now imagine the reverse. Imagine London safe again. Imagine pride again. Imagine the capital city of the United Kingdom, restored to its former glory. Strong, confident, prosperous, and secure. This is the London I believe in. And that is the London I will fight for. A London where our flag will be flown proudly across this city as a symbol of unity, belonging, and as a symbol of our British pride.
But how are you going to do that? If you are going to do that, you will have to drive out Islam. You will have to shut down the mosques, raising young terrorists. You will have to evict the illegal migrants. You will have to end the rape gangs. My question is whether another Muslim can do that, and I have my doubts. Certainly there is much we don't know about Laila. Rightly, she does blame London's downfall, though, on that stone-cold loser, Sadiq Khan.
I love this city with all my heart. But unlike some in this room, I'm not blind to what it's become. London, one of the greatest cities on earth, is no longer safe. And that didn't happen by accident. That happened on Sadiq Khan's watch. Let's just go through some stats. Knife crime in London is up 68% since 2016. Robbery is up by more than 50% during that same period. More than 100 phones are stolen every single year, and that's just those we know about. We are living, ladies and gentlemen, through a rape epidemic. This is the London that Sadiq Khan has created. A city where criminals operate freely, where victims are sacrificed, ignored. People are scared. And Khan thinks it's enough to tweet platitudes, random stats. Because let's face it, Khan never accepts responsibility. No, he attacks anyone who says London's dangerous. He calls them far right. Racist. He ludicrously says that criticism of his record is because he's Muslim, and we are all Islamophobic. Frankly, it's an insult to victims and to Londoners.
Laila says the choice between her and Khan will decide the future of London. But without a clear understanding of Laila's commitment to her Muslim faith, will we actually be voting for the final stage of the Islamist takeover?
The choice of Khan v Cunningham is a choice that you will make that will decide the future of London, the future of the best city in the world. So I tell you this, vote for the freedom that safety brings. Vote for reform. Thank you.
We know very little about Laila Cunningham, certainly very little about how much she is driven by her Muslim faith. Today, she has decided to appear on a YouTube show hosted by a big Labour backing loser, Harry Cole, the ex-political editor of The Sun, who has just 8,600 subscribers on YouTube, rather than accept my invitation to appear here on Outspoken. Now, Cole is an awful establishment shill, most famous in Westminster for previously shagging Boris Johnson's now wife, Carrie. That poor woman. Today, he had the temerity to describe me as a racist twat for voicing my concerns about Cunningham's selection. A post on X, by the way, now deleted because he knows that he will be humiliated in court attempting to prove that I am racist. As I told him, being Muslim is not a race, it is a religious identification. And I would also argue that the only twat is the bloke, Harry Cole, who forced his company to spend hundreds of thousands of bucks to launch a show called Harry Cole Saves the West, only to end up with less than 10,000 subscribers. Now, Harry Cole did eventually delete the post, but it does show you what we're up against. Even someone who claims to be on the right, despite endorsing Starmer for PM, doesn't understand that criticising Islam doesn't make you racist. There is no blasphemy law in the UK yet. And sure enough, he has just now posted that he has sat down with Laila Cunningham. She decided to go on a show watched by literally tens of people rather than come to us, the biggest independent daily news show in the United Kingdom, broadcast out of London every single day. And Harry Cole posted, "Cry more, Dan Wootton. Subscribe and see Laila Cunningham's brilliant response to Cracker's claims she's possibly an Islamist." And look, I will be watching. I know no one else will, but I will be, because I want to see how she answers that question. But perhaps what is most depressing to me in today's decision is that Reform UK had the perfect candidate in place, and Middleton. But they panicked after he aligned himself with Tommy Robinson.
The character of Ant Middleton, he's a very strong man, and that's what this country needs. It needs strong men, not weak men, and it needs principled men. So Ant Middleton, and if you look at what he said, he didn't speak about me having a perfect history. He spoke about my journalism of what he's watched and my investigations, and he said that it was important work.
But I have spoken to Ant Middleton today, and he is absolutely determined to continue his run as an independent candidate, even though some will say, look, it's going to split the Conservative vote with Reform UK, could even lead to Khan returning to finish London off altogether. He says to me, no, I am running, Dan. I'm getting big backing. He is determined to do this. Remember, this is what Ant told me at the Unite the Kingdom rally about his campaign.
You have made a big personal decision, right, Ant? Because, I mean, when I first knew you, you had a big showbiz career, things were going very nicely, huge big jobs in Australia. You sacrificed that by saying, I'm getting political and I'm going to be the next London mayor.
I didn't realise at the time how much it would affect my media career.
You've lost a lot?
I've not lost a lot because I'm my own person, but they don't mix. You either go with one or the other, but my
So
purpose,
you're all in now?
All in. My purpose and my calling is to serve once again I've served my country, Dan. I've served my queen, God rest her soul. And I think it's time to serve my people. And I really, really mean that. The calling is too big for me to sit in my hands and live my nice life and, with my family. I've got to do something about it because I know that I can implement change, and my moral compass won't allow me not to give it a bloody good go.
And today, Ant Middleton hasn't directly referred to Laila Cunningham, but he has reaffirmed his commitment to run against Khan, posting, "Preservation of British cultural faith and traditions, along with the safety and security of London and Londoners, is an absolute priority for London for it to become once again the leading capital of the world. People visit London to see England at its finest, once the most respected, advanced, and most innovative country to ever exist. Let's get back to that, starting with our crown jewel of a capital." Now compare that to Cunningham, who recently appeared with that wet wipe, Andrew Gold. Watch.
And that's the trouble I had with Shabana Mahmood, because she had one video where she said, "Everything I do stems from my religion." I don't know if you saw it or something like that.
Yes.
And that would worry me because we're not a Muslim country. And I don't really want a Home Secretary whose decisions stem from her religion first and her nationality second. Because there can be a conflict of interest. I'm not part of a Muslim community. I'm part of a British community. I don't see myself different to any other British person. And if Muslims come here and want to do harm to our country, if they want to come and harm our girls, if they want to commit terrorist attacks, then they should not be allowed in this country, no matter where they're from. And if they're Muslims, of course, I'm going to call it out, because there are Muslim communities in this country who bring shame on the rest of the Muslims. Those girls that were raped by the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, they were raped because they were white and they were non-Muslim, and it's disgusting. And I'll never defend that. And it's got nothing to do with religion. For me, religion is a source of good.
But it does have everything to do with religion. World by Wolf responded by saying, "So Laila Cunningham says Muslims with intent to commit terrorism and rape shouldn't be allowed to come to Britain. But does she propose we vet them for that trade? It's impossible. The only option is a blanket ban on all Islamic immigration, which of course she will never advocate for." She then goes on to admit that the victims of rape gangs were chosen because they were white and non-Muslim, but then says the gangs had nothing to do with Islam before going on to say Islam is a force for good. Why is Reform promoting a woman who clearly wants more Islam in Britain and sees it as a positive thing? Laila then said this to Andrew Gold.
My parents moved here in the 60s to assimilate and to be
Egypt.
British. Yeah. They didn't move here for a quasi-Muslim country, and I don't think a lot of Muslims do that. I mean, others go back, This is not what people move here for.
This must be even more frustrating for you than it is for anyone else. This is
100%.
It makes you look bad as well.
100%.
World by Wolf again challenged her, writing, "The trouble with that is that all of the polls shows that Muslims do want Britain to become more Islamic, and they get more hardline through the generations. 40% want Sharia law. 52% want it to be illegal to depict Muhammad. 24% said 7/7 was justified. 40% supported bin Laden after 9/11. She then says that the behaviour of Muslims is even more frustrating for her than for most people. I assure you, as an Englishman who has watched his people be terrorised and raped on an industrial scale, that we are much more frustrated than you are, Laila." Clearly, Cunningham, like Zia Yusuf, is being used by the establishment to normalise multiculturalism. Now, interestingly, there are those on the right who think even though Reform UK clearly doesn't have the answers, that they are still the best way to break the two-party system. Watch this from Steve Laws on the YouTube show The State of Politics.
What do you think about Nigel Farage?
I see him as like the biggest disappointment. That's the only way to explain it, because he was my entry point into politics on the most part.
Interesting. Okay.
Like in terms of like, you know, when you start getting into, like, I've always sort of understood about immigration and stuff, but I wouldn't say I was politically active. But when like I'd watch like LBC and stuff like that with Nigel back in the day, or watch his UKIP speeches and so forth. And it's sort of like, he was sort of like the entry point, and it's like, so it's hard to sit here and say I despise him now and I think he's a piece of shit. But It's difficult to take that position, but he is. I don't think he's ever going to carry out what's necessary. He's got a Muslim as his chairman. That tells you everything you need to know. If he gets into, obviously we need him to get into power. We need reform to win the next general election just to break the two-party system, and then we can have a free reign at real politics in this country. That's the hope from it. And then once Farage is in power, that's when everyone's got to attack him from the right ridiculously. Think how bad we attack now. We've got to double those efforts, and then some more, and to the point where Farage will be forced to either step down or implement what we want. Either way, there will be a hell of a lot of weight in terms of activism and potentially other parties breathing down his neck, because everyone's going to want a piece of that once the two-party system's broken.
Now, I see a lot of people in the live chat saying that Tommy Robinson supports Laila Cunningham. I did check in with Tommy earlier today, and he was absolutely unequivocal. He will be supporting Ant Middleton, not Laila Cunningham. On certain areas, by the way, I will say Nigel Farage, despite what Steve Laws might say, does continue to do brilliant work. Watch this.
The boats are still coming. The first one of the new year has arrived in Dover, and before long, Starmer will be the PM who's allowed more people to cross the English Channel than any other Prime Minister. Yes, they are Starmer's boats, but you think that's bad? Have a look at this story.
Migrants are posting brazen videos of themselves jumping on lorries to smuggle themselves into the country. Clips, understood to have been filmed in northern France, demonstrate how best to hide before boarding a lorry in an attempt to enter the UK.
You see, only 40% of those that come illegally come by boat. The rest come in backs of lorries. The rest are overstayers. It's a joke. It's out of control. We've now got councils buying up property just to put illegal immigrants in, whilst other people from Britain go homeless. Only reform will detain and deport anyone that comes illegally by whatever means.
And compare that to James O'Brien on LBC, who gaslights those of us who think there is a problem at all.
The average American doesn't want to have any military tension or war with Europe. Oh, no.
They don't care, James.
Well, they do. That's why they've been pretending that we've got all sorts of problems with Muslims and immigrants and Sadiq Khan in London and all of the rest of it, designed to portray Europe as being in need of American intervention or American help, with Lord Haw-Haws and Lady Haw-Haws, from Farage to little Tommy Ten Names, all joining in, portraying their own country as something in a state of peril or something in a state of disarray or chaos, when obviously
Correct,
the opposite
James.
is true.
And if you add the support that they're putting behind reform in this country, the AfD in Germany, and all sorts of populist, right-wing, far-right parties across Europe, they have been putting us in this position on purpose. And we're coming to the end game.
Now, as I say, lots of people on the right disagreeing with my stance today. Tim Montgomery, Colin Brazier, who's here tomorrow, disagreeing. But interestingly, not Howard Cox. And why does Howard Cox matter? Howard Cox matters because he was the last Reform UK mayoral candidate. He's watching Outspoken right now and has just sent me this statement opposing the selection of Laila Cunningham for Reform UK. This from Howard Cox. I see GB News, Reform's propaganda channel, has focused on Farage's press conference today, launching the Muslim Laila Cunningham as their London mayoral candidate. It makes me so fucking angry about the way I was not supported when I was their candidate. God, I am delighted I left this regime and joined Advance. The way they treated Rupert, Ben, and Alex was a key reason I joined our Democratic Party. This early announcement of the London mayoral candidacy by the snake oil salesman shows his opportunism in seeking the 1.2 million Islamic votes in our capital. But her being female may not give Reform an easy ride. So, that reaction from Howard Cox, former mayoral candidate for Reform UK, now a member of Advance UK. Now, let me bring in the superstar panel. Leo Kearse and Callie J. Keane with me. Kelly J, look, that is an interesting point from Howard Cox, is it not? It's all well and good saying you've got an Islamist candidate, or at least a Muslim candidate. She's apparently telling Harry Cole she's not an Islamist. I'm more than happy to watch and see what she says. I'm sad that she didn't agree to come here tonight, Laila Cunningham. But doesn't Howard Cox make an interesting political point that this will probably backfire anyway, because most Muslims will not vote for a female candidate, let alone a female candidate running for Reform UK?
Yeah, I think that is a good point. However, I think in the discourse, I mean, we've got to get rid of Khan, right? He's a terrible human being, regardless of his religion. He's just a loathsome boil on the butt of humanity. So whatever it takes to get rid of him, I think is a good thing. And I think she does, by the fact that she's Muslim, she does manage to brush off some of the accusations of either being a racist or being an Islamophobe or the other things that weasel will accuse people of. So, you know, I think in a political field, I think she's the right person. You know, I'm an activist, so it wouldn't necessarily be the right thing for me as an activist. But pragmatically, I think maybe she is the right candidate for reform.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, Leo? Because now we have even people on the right throwing around that term racist. I mean, look, Harry Cole deleted his tweet, his post on X, because I would have been able to successfully sue him. He knows that. He knows that. There is no evidence I am racist because I am anything but racist. You know, why would Father Calvin Robinson, based and bougie, and so many others be regular guests here on Outspoken if I were racist? That makes absolutely no sense. But I find it incredibly depressing that figures on the right don't understand that we do have no blasphemy law here. Islam is not a race. I am able to criticize it, just like Megyn Kelly does in the US, just like Charlie Kirk does in the US. I don't mind that people are going to disagree with me, but I do have a right to say that I would prefer a Christian mayor of London.
Yeah, and it's daft to sort of to accuse somebody of racism when they criticize Islam, because Islam isn't a color. If you go to the 100%. Balkans, if you go to Russia, you'll meet plenty of Muslims who are just as white as us. So it's not a race. I can understand why it gets sort of conflated with racism, because, you know, so many of the problems that we associate with Islam in this country, you know, come from people who are brown. You know, we don't get so many of the white Muslims emigrating here. But I mean, I think like Kelly was saying, the sort of the calculation of having a Muslim, a mixed race or Egyptian second generation migrant as the candidate, it's good optics, not just from the point of view of appealing to the electorate in London. You got to remember, you know, now that Sadiq Khan and the leftists have gerrymandered the vote, they've brought in millions and millions of people from overseas who they know will vote for left-wing parties. They'll vote for candidates like Sadiq Khan. Now that that's happened, you know, you can't just put up a candidate who's going to appeal to, you know, Cockneys or, you know, white Brits, even people like me who've moved from the provinces, the furthest reaches of this island to live in or around London. You can't just appeal to them. You've got to appeal to the electorate that's there. That's just the system that we've got now. So somebody like Ant Middleton would be, you know, he'd be a tough candidate to get in, I think. Whereas somebody like Laila Cunningham, because she's got that background, and she's not, you know, she can't be dismissed as anything. She can sort of get a wedge in there, and a lot of people will feel more comfortable voting for her, even though they sort of, you know, they agree with Farage, they're quite right wing. They'll feel more comfortable voting for a Muslim, voting for a woman, voting for a second generation migrant, and also having somebody who's got that background makes it easier for them to espouse more hardline policies. I mean, I think we saw this with Suella Braverman, with Priti Patel. Not that I'm saying, you know, Priti Patel actually ended up actually implementing any particularly hardline policies. It was quite the opposite, in fact. I think a lot of post-Brexit rush of the Boris wave was down to her. But yeah, she's really different from somebody like Mamdani, who's just a absolute flat out self-admitted like communist. You know what I mean? I mean that's ludicrous. She's also very different from Sadiq Khan, who, you know, while he's more of a, I guess, centrist in this country, centrist politician, you know, his background as a human rights lawyer, I don't trust. I don't have quite the opinion that, you know, other people have, but I don't trust him, and I don't trust his intent, and I don't know what he'd be saying if he was in a different situation, if he didn't have to also appeal to, you know, the whatever percentage of the city, the 33% that is white British. So yeah, I think she's actually a pretty good pick. And also, man, I got to say, I don't have a problem with. I'm staunchly against Islamism, and so is she. I'm against Sharia courts in the UK, and so is she. She's spoken out against both those things. She's not an Islamist in the sense of political Islam or Islam conquering and taking over. For her, it is, or it appears to just be a religion, a source of strength and community in her life. Which, you know, I wish more Muslims were like that. I wish they were all like that. I wish they all treated it like I think most Christians treat Christianity. Maybe we're at the point where Islam's going to have that sort of reformation and is going to become more like modern Christianity. But yeah, I got to say, I like her, and I like the fact that she's got a posh English accent. I don't really, you know, I've been accused of being racist as well, but really I think we all know that we judge people on their accent. And if you've got a posh English accent, man, you can get away. With anything.
I would argue that people are being really naive about Islam. I really would. I mean, I want to show you these posts from Chris Davies of True Conservative Media, who says, Reform UK has made a fundamental error in nominating Laila Cunningham as their London mayoral candidate. Non-Muslims don't want another Muslim mayor, and the Muslim bloc will not vote for her. This is a lose-lose nomination that smacks of virtue signaling over strategy. And then someone replied, a pro-reform person replied to Chris Davies saying, she might be a Muslim, but at least she's a westernised Muslim who has views, ideas and policies aimed at vastly improving London for Londoners, unlike the cretin who occupies the seat at present. Now, of course, absolutely. Will Laila Cunningham be a better Muslim in charge of London than Sadiq Khan? Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that. But it was Chris Davies' reply that I agree with. Not a high bar to get over, to be fair. Islam is a crusading ideology, a way of life, not a religion. I don't buy the moderate Muslim shtick. And neither do I. Neither do I. And I have a lot of questions for Laila Cunningham and for Zia Yusuf about their Muslim faith that no one has asked them. And no one asked them because no one is prepared to take that risk of being accused of Islamophobia, or as Harry Cole accused me today, of racism. And we need to know. We need to know. One of the reasons why there is so much controversy around Laila Cunningham becoming the Muslim mayoral candidate in London is because there is, quite frankly, an Islamist takeover going on, not just of many of our political systems, but even our law enforcement. And this was summed up by Britain Has Broken, who made it clear that Israelis were banned from Villa Park because elements of the community in the West Midlands wanted to arm themselves. And they asked this very pertinent question, why do we keep pandering to violent Muslims? Now, this is a shocking story that has emerged over the past 48 hours. The Sunday Times initially revealing that the police's concern about safety was not prompted by the behavior of Maccabi fans, but local Muslims. And they then drew up false evidence, which has now been exposed and come crashing down and really shown that so many organizations up and down this country, including law enforcement, including the police, are captured by Muslim extremists. And that matters, and it's extremely disturbing. As Basil the Great put it, look at the state of Birmingham. No wonder West Midlands police have been compromised by Islamists. They literally run the city. And Chris Rose pointed out, under Chief Constable Craig Guilford, masked Muslim men were allowed to police themselves in August 2024. One of the men in a balaclava held a knife and attempted to slash the tyres of the Sky News broadcast van. the type of people West Midlands police consulted about Israeli fans. Do you remember what happened during those riots? Watch.
Community leaders have been speaking to the police as well because...
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Fuck India!
But I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but a sense of the anger I think you can hear there.
Yeah, Katie, I think Becky, I apologise. We need to leave you there, and Becky, we'll have security there, and we will leave that, and I apologise once again for the language there. Our political...
And even very recently, around this game, I was pointing out, and Britain Has Broken reminded us that they were literally telling their people to arm themselves for the game and lie to the police. Here's Ahmed Yaqub. Remember this?
Have a bat in your car, but you can't demonstrate that you have a sporting event. You can get into trouble with the police and the prosecution and see yourself in court for possession of an offensive weapon. So if you do have a baseball bat, for example, for a sporting event, then make sure it is clear and you have other equipment with it as well. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to show that you have a reasonable excuse to have this bat. Always remember, there's a defence for every offence.
So that's the context of this astonishing select committee yesterday. Basil summed it up this way. Massive scandal unfolding in Parliament. The West Midlands police are admitting they're terrified of Muslims in the local area arming themselves. This is why they lied. This is why they've covered it up. They're terrified of Muslims. Watch.
Why are we only hearing about this now? Why is it that a report has come at lunchtime today from the Times newspaper that you had information on the 5th of September that there were likely to be vigilante groups within the West Midlands community itself who were planning to take action against the Maccabi fans? How is it that this committee is just hearing this for the first time?
Well, I think this is the first time specifically that you've asked for that detail. That's what we tried. That's what we tried to get across.
Absolutely outrageous.
This is the first time that you.
I think to be clear, we have wanted to get to the bottom of this and understand why the decision was taken that you did. We would like very much for you to be able to demonstrate to us that this was done entirely on a risk-based matter for public safety, etc., etc. And it is very frustrating if there is information that could help you in that doesn't come to light up front. And I don't think we should have to ask specifically for every single piece of information.
They also admitted that they liaised with mosques before the decision.
Representatives in advance of making a decision.
In advance of making the decision, I think we liaised with a range of faiths, community groups and mosques, yes.
Including mosques. On what dates did you meet with mosques? Or Muslim representatives?
I've got a full list of community contacts. I can send that to you if you wish, in relation to every single date and time of every communication that took place.
That'd be great. It is my understanding that West Midlands Police decided to consult with various mosques, as you've indicated,
Engage, not consult, but yeah.
Okay, including ones that had a previous documented history of anti-Semitism prior to the decision being made with Maccabi fans. Are you aware that those mosques had that?
Not as far as I'm aware, no.
No. And is it reasonable to check that those mosques would have had that level of accusation that had been made against them before engaging with them?
What we have is a vicinity or a community that has places of worship, charities, third sector organisations and key contacts, and we liaised with a lot of different people who I'm sure have a range of views, but it wasn't consultation, it was engagement, and there was no pressure in relation to our decision. It was made in relation to public safety.
Oh, sure there wasn't. Sure there wasn't. It wasn't consultation, it was just, a bit of engagement with the mosques, the extremist mosques. I mean, as Habibi pointed out, extraordinary that West Midlands Police would consult with the Green Lane Mosque on any topic, let alone an Israeli issue. The mosque has an extremist record going back decades now. Pray for Palestinians and beseech Allah to destroy their oppression. That was in October 2023. Watch.
And then raise your hands in qunutun nazila, making dua for the people of Palestine, and also making dua against the oppressors, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys all those who are oppressing our brothers and sisters in Gaza.
Now, rightly, some people are outraged about this. Tommy Robinson writing, they made the excuse that their behaviour is why they banned fans from Birmingham. The truth revealed today is that Muslims were planning armed attacks on the Jewish supporters. An absolute travesty and show of cowardice yet again. And Liz Truss, former Prime Minister, writing, the West Midlands police have been completely captured by Islamists. Now to the extent of producing false evidence, there needs to be a clear out of the Chief Constable and senior team. And I mean, it really is just so shocking and so appalling. And we know that this is going on, but it doesn't make it any better. And then you've got a mainstream media that doesn't want to cover it at all. So look at this. Ben Green pointed it out. Just incredible framing from the BBC, tucked away in paragraph 19. Is the actual real news that only emerged today. Maccabi fans were banned due to the threat of local vigilante groups. A national scandal. A police force cowered by local radical Islamists. The BBC continue the gaslighting. Now, my superstar panel, very hot on this issue. Leo Kearse posting in 2023, Islamists threatened to kill an autistic 14-year-old boy who had accidentally scuffed a Quran in Wakefield. The police arranged for his mother to wear a hijab and give a grovelling apology to a room of angry Muslims. West Mids police banning Jews appease angry Islamists is the norm. The British state has always been craven to Islamists. And Kelly J. Keane arguing no Muslim police networks and no Muslim community consultations by police. It's terrible for law and order. It's not the West Midlands community, it's Muslims. Can we start saying what the problem is? Muslim men with low IQs as a result of cousin marriage who are aggressive, violent, and really, really hate Jews. FFS. I mean, Kelly J, this is a national scandal. The BBC make it paragraph 19 of their report. This is why we're screwed, because no one talks about the real issues.
Well, if they'd had a drag queen that could have commented for the BBC, I think we'd all just be a little happier. Have we heard what the drag queens think of the football? I don't think we have. I think we all thought for a long, long time that actually the police didn't want to be accused of being racist, but actually I think the police are terrified of what these Muslim men will do. Was it Stockport, the protest that turned into a riot in Stockport? There's a police officer calmly telling the Muslims to go and put their weapons in the mosque.
Yes.
You know, it's just mad. It's just totally mad.
Yeah, and we don't want any police presence because, you know, it might inflame the local community. You know, they certainly don't feel that way about a Tommy Robinson march.
No, well, everyone obviously is far right. You know, as soon as you can say there's a group of people with some, I mean, Leo mentioned earlier accents, but, you know, not posh accents, but regional accents. As soon as those people are out and about and protesting against the rape of children or migrant hotels and so on, they can be castigated as far right. Yet, even in that little clip, I think it was somebody from the Lords, judging by the lanyard, he said, you know, the West Midlands community. I think we just have to start naming this problem. It often is Muslims from a particular area of Pakistan that cause the most issues in this country. I can't quite remember which area that is. We'll just take the whole of Pakistan. That'll be fine.
Leo Kearse.
Yeah, I mean, this is insane. The fact that police have the whole entire British state has got into the position of having to capitulate to the demands of Muslim communities. Say they're going to kick off with violence if they don't get their way, and also the Muslim communities have elected their own leaders like Ayub Khan and various other people who can campaign for specific Muslim issues, whether it's Gaza or wanting to pump your own cousin, whatever it is, whatever wonderful thing that they want to support that's got, nothing to do with Britain or being British. We haven't been cousin pumpers for well over 100 years. And the way they're sort of they try and because the police excuse is that they have to keep the peace, but that's only one purpose of the police. The main purpose of the police is to enforce the law without prejudice, and they're not doing that at all. In this case, to keep the peace, they cast the Jewish football fans as the aggressors. They said, if we allow the Tel Aviv Maccabi fans to come to Birmingham, they're going to attack people. We've had intelligence from the Dutch police that said that they attack people. Then Dutch police said, no, we didn't give you that information. We didn't give any intelligence that said that. The fights in Amsterdam were instigated by Muslims. There's screenshots of chats on WhatsApp between Muslim men, basically organizing. They refer to it as a Jew hunt. So people say Muslims don't integrate. They fully integrated into the 1940s Nazi tradition of hunting Jews in Amsterdam. So the Dutch police said there's no we didn't give them this intelligence. The police then revealed they essentially just made it up. They Googled, they did a Google search and got a result that was false, that told them what they wanted to hear. They called that open source intelligence. That's not open source intelligence. That's making it up. That's like having something you want to do and then finding the evidence that fits what you want to do. And it's all, it's blatantly politically angled. The local politicians, the Muslim politicians, put pressure on the police. They organised petitions to get the Jewish fans banned. And people might think, well, it's not such a big deal. It's just a football match. What's going to happen when Muslims are like 25% of the country's population, and they've got like real heft and real power, and their politicians, can then look at doing other things. Look at what they've done to Jews in other countries, across basically every single Muslim country.
Exactly, but this is the problem that I have, Kelly J. To come back to the Laila Cunningham issue, this is the problem that I have with constant capitulation. We keep on capitulating, right? It's literally killing people, because this capitulation means, for example, that a security guard at the Manchester Arena doesn't approach the ISIS bomber for fear of being accused of racism. So the capitulation happens all the time. And the problem is that the police are capitulating. Political parties are now capitulating. Oh, we'll never win unless we put up a Muslim candidate. I really think it's important that we don't capitulate to Islam in a Christian country.
I agree with you. I'm just looking at across Reform. Who else could they have picked? Most people I couldn't name in Reform. There's just a handful of people, and I do think Reform is the only hope actually to get rid of Khan. I don't think a single other party or independent has got a cat and house chance. So, unless they had another minority person who was really articulate, charismatic, and so on, I really do think she's the only hope. And I hate it, because I'd like to see a return to. I'm an atheist, so I can't really say we definitely should have a Christian as the mayor of London. But the first port of call, the first thing we have to do is get rid of Khan, right? So let's do that. After that, then maybe we can have a discussion about who should be the person after, if Laila Cunningham is elected, who should be after her, and maybe that will be a different mix. But
well, if we're not careful, if we're not careful and we keep going down this path, there will never be a non-Muslim mayor of London again. And it's not just going to be London. This is the problem. We're going to be talking about all of our major cities shortly if this is the path that political parties choose to go down. It's been quite beautiful to watch. I have to be honest with you. We are watching the death of the British mainstream media in real time. And they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. As many of you will know, I spent loads of my career in the mainstream media. It was a very different era, though. And I did a full 10 years actually working at ITV Daytime. Woke ITV, as I now call it, but it wasn't then. I left in 2019 before they went crazy over issues like Meghan Markle and COVID. But now, they're finding out that if you continue to gaslight, if you continue to mislead, if you continue to spread fake news, if you continue to spread fear, the viewers aren't going to stay with you. And as a result, there has been the most dramatic cost cutting I have ever seen. And it has led to ITV having to downsize, shall we say, shrink all of its flagship daytime shows, Good Morning Britain, This Morning, and then specifically Lorraine and Loose Women, which will only be on for half the year now. And Lorraine, in her teeny tiny new set, only actually runs for 22 minutes. Yes, this is the death of the mainstream media. And viewers are noticing, with the Daily Mail reporting that viewers mock GMB's cramped and cheap news studio as presenters Ed Balls and Susanna Reid have to lean back to talk to guests because the desk is so small. Susanna Reid decided to try and turn this into a positive thing, posting, "New GMB studio equals big headlines. More than happy to be closer to our brilliant guests." Sure you are, Susanna, because you know that your £600,000 a year job for turning up at work 4 days a week is not going to last much longer. I responded to my former colleague, "We are witnessing the death of the MSM in real time, and it is a beautiful thing. Keep switching off, and soon their studio won't exist at all." And indeed, the most hilarious example of this is over on Channel 5. You know, Channel 5 runs basically hours and hours of cheap daytime content from Jeremy Vine and Storm Huntley and a couple of other people who I've never heard of. And they brought Vanessa Feltz into the lineup. And her show has been completely disastrous. No one is watching. She had a garish pink set. But for the relaunch, she's now been pushed back to 2 p.m. on Channel 5. For the relaunch, they decided, I know what we're going to do. We're going to pretend that Vanessa Feltz is hosting a podcast, that she's hosting a show like this. So they've given her studio the third revamp. Unfortunately, the content is still the same. Watch.
I would love to engage you in a spirited argument, Gladys, but actually I feel exactly the same, so I can't. I have to just agree.
Come and see her and things like that. I don't want to be ringing my mum going, "Listen, me and Ola are going out tonight. Can you come and look after Ella?" And her to feel like she has to, if that makes sense.
So be conscious of what money they're spending. Let's go to the calls, because Lorraine's on the line in Norfolk. Lorraine, how do you feel? Do you feel you should be paid for looking after that beloved granddaughter of yours, or are you happy to do it?
She's got a microphone, so it must be a podcast, right? But unfortunately, the content hasn't changed at all. Watch.
When the chairman of IKEA said, "We've reached peak stuff. We've all just got too much of everything." When, when I was a child, you longed for a watch. And when you finally got the watch, you're about 10 or 11, you treasured it. It was your only watch. Now people have got 7 watches, 10 watches. They're all so many of everything.
If I was a Generation Z, I'm just sort of like just out of the demographic now. Just ever so slightly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
I think I probably would prefer a dog to a child at the moment.
Oh. You'd prefer a dog to a child? Yep, exactly. That's the type of discussion. But by the way, her microphone is turned off because she was actually wearing a little lapel microphone. So it was total TV fakery. But of course, to my superstar panel, Kelly J. Keane and the independent broadcaster, Leo Kerr, this is all smoke and mirrors, isn't it, Leo? Because fundamentally, these channels know that their content is dying. No one is going to turn on terrestrial television soon enough. The big movement in broadcasting has been, of course, to streaming services, but now, and I'm not just saying it because it's where we happen to be broadcasting live at the moment, but to YouTube, which is now the biggest broadcaster in the world. So what they're having to do is massively cut back and sort of pretend to still be the shows that they used to on a fraction of the budget.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of Schadenfreude watching it. You know what I mean? It's great to see the legacy media on its knees and cutting corners. And the thing about it is, like, the legacy media is supposed to. Like, I don't think the legacy media even has any sort of status. People think it still drives the conversation. I don't think it does anymore. I think we saw with Trump's election, podcasts were far more important because you can just sort of get stuck in for 2 hours and really set out what you mean. It's not just a 1.5 minute soundbite. And the trouble that we've got with GMB is that it's legacy media. It's supposed to be regulated by Ofcom. It's supposed to be held to a higher standard. Blah blah blah. And then they have Ed Balls interviewing his wife, Yvette Cooper. And it's like, well, where are the broadcasting standards there? You know what I mean? You might as well tune into one of my streams and hear me ranting about whatever nonsense I'm ranting about. It's going to be just as journalistically accurate, probably more so. You know what I mean? I think I've got a bit more experience in the real world than Yvette Cooper or Ed Balls. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of enjoyable to watch it, but I'm worried because we know what's going to happen when GMB finally goes bust. Those people are going to come over to YouTube. They're going to set up their own channels. And this is the problem, man. I was on YouTube like 5 years ago and I was doing videos. It was all fine. Now, like, everybody's on YouTube. Dan Wootton's on YouTube. Like, Mark Dolan's on YouTube. Everybody's coming over to YouTube. And I'm like, man, I was the only guy. I was the only angry right-wing guy on YouTube. And now everybody is. So yeah, I really hope.
There's so much space here now. There's so much space because everything has changed now. I think more people watch this show, believe it or not, on their TV. So
yeah.
The idea that YouTube is now something for your devices is just out the window. So I think there's lots of space for people here. What is most funny, actually, Kelly J, is when you look at the YouTube account of these big mainstream media broadcasters and no one is watching them on YouTube. So it's really the legacy people who are used to the 5 channels, who switch on. But Kelly J, I think they deserve to go, don't they? I mean, think of the terrible role that Good Morning Britain played during COVID, during the debate that you became very prominent in terms of the trans issue. I would argue they have been on the wrong side of that right from the start.
Well, 100%. And it's interesting you mentioned COVID, because I think what that lockdown did, once you started seeing, it was like we all saw behind the curtain. So you started to see the sort of the veneer of television just faded away, and more people were on YouTube. Obviously, I think Trigonometry started it during the pandemic, or certainly around that time. So you began to see that these people don't really have any talent, don't have too much charisma or personality, and the only thing they've got is big studios and lights. And now they don't have that anymore. And so I think people are switching off anyway. I think it's probably quite a natural progression that now anybody can be a broadcaster, that people are going to tune in more sort of niche and to people that they want to see rather than sit down in front of the telly. But they certainly have helped themselves into unemployment. So that's endless joy.
It is endless joy. Leo, I've got to get you to comment on Vanessa here, because look, let me just do a little bit of detective work. So there's the Rode microphone, which is one of the sort of trendy podcast type microphones, right? But look, it's facing away from her, Leo. And if you zoom in here, there's the real microphone. There's the TV lapel mic. So it's fake. It's total fakery.
The whole point about having a lav mic, like having a mic on your collar, is that it's supposed to be unobtrusive. Nobody notices it. It's just like you're having a chat with friends. And then she's got a big clunking mic, a big mic like one of ours, which is obviously a microphone right in front of your face to capture the noise. She's got that there, and it isn't turned on. It's like, if you're going to have fake stuff, why not have let your imagination run wild? don't have a fake thing that you're actually then using. You know what I mean? Like that you're actually, that you would be using, but you're not using. That's just really weird. It's like a car with fake wheels. Like, why would you put fake, like, I don't know. I don't get it.
And
I don't
it's
get it
not
myself.
going to work, is it? It's not going to work because, Kelly Jane, look, here is the fundamental thing. Why I think these shows are failing is nothing to do with their studios. Yeah, the viewers might be moaning about the fact that the studio is a little bit small, but actually, I think what the independent media revolution it proves is that people don't care about that. People don't care about the size of your studio or the quality of your microphone. People care about the authenticity of your conversations. And the problem is that for a long time, what broadcasters like Woke ITV have been doing, and they will always say it's because of the advertisers, because the advertisers threatened to pull the funding. Look at what happened with the launch of GB News when they immediately launched a boycott of that channel. But the point is, they are gatekeepers. They are not truth tellers. They are the type of people, again, coming back to your main topic, that will call Sam Smith a they and will scold a guest for calling Sam Smith a he and then ban them from ever appearing on the channel again. And I mean, that's just one example, isn't it? Because you can also look at all of the examples of people like Bev Turner who were cancelled over the COVID pandemic for calling out the vaccine.
Yeah, and I guess it might go back to Ofcom being captured.
The Ofcommunists, very good point. I didn't mention them.
Which then informed the style guides, which then informed the language and the pressure groups and so on. But I think, you're right. I think we all just got fed up of being lectured to by these channels. And we want to hear people that speak a bit like us, that not necessarily always having the same views as us, but that people who claim to be sort of on the television actually represent us in some way. And I think we all started to feel with mainstream media that they were trying to influence us as opposed to reflect. And maybe it's always been like that, but we just didn't know. But I think the lockdown, like I said, I think that just gave us an insight. And I think they stopped being able to fool us, that they were sort of one of us on our side and reflecting us. And we started to see that they were trying to brainwash us into whatever view the mainstream media decided we should have.
Ricky Gervais is actually one of my favourite people in the world. It's interesting, isn't it? Because clearly back in the day, he would have been someone who was considered to be on the left, I guess, or a little bit liberal. But those terms are meaningless now. I don't think it's about right or left. It's about right or wrong. And on the key issues, the issues that really matter, free speech, the gender debate, Ricky Gervais has been on the right side of history. And he's done it in a way which is so brilliant because he's exposed the precious, pandered celebrity elite class for what they really are, even though he admits he is sort of one of them. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. I absolutely love him. Not to mention the fact he's totally talented too. So, of course, when he went back to his old workplace, the people who discovered him, the BBC, the British Bashing Corporation, as I call them, he was hounded over his jokes, which of course go against the woke doctrine of the failing broadcaster. So the comedian, for some reason, decided to appear on The Cultural Life, hosted by the woke grandpa John Wilson, to talk about his most significant creative influences and inspirations in his life. But he ended up receiving a grilling over whether his dark jokes could be harmful to the British public, who Wilson seems to think lack an understanding of what is comedy. Listen.
Do you ever consider that your jokes, though, may give your audiences or people leaving a theatre after a stand-up show some kind of licence to let their own prejudices go unchecked?
That was one of the many criticisms that people aim at a comedian when they do a joke that they don't like. Oh, if you joke about a bad subject, that might make people think it's okay, right? Which is a nonsense. It's not. So people joke about dark subjects all the time. I can't wait for the day when someone is in court and the judge says, why did you rape and murder all those people? Well, because I heard a joke about it and I thought it was probably all right to do.
Yeah, but maybe it's not as dramatic as that. What
No, it isn't, no.
What I'm thinking about is the guy who goes down the pub and makes jokes in front of other people about mental disability.
Yeah.
Or some kind of physical disability, or something that you have created scenarios about on a live stage.
So you mean...
within the context, but if they do it in the pub, then they don't have the same comic context that you do.
So I should say, don't try this at home, is what you're saying. I assume they...
He then went on to suggest that Ricky Gervais should regret jokes he made about, you guessed it, trans people, disabled folks, and fatties. But Ricky delivered a great response. Listen.
Do I regret anything? No. Would I do things differently now? Probably. You'd have to be specific, but
well, I mean, your
change all
jokes
the
about
time.
Disability, transgender issues, fat shaming, that kind of thing that you have been accused of.
Yeah.
It's almost like you haven't changed in parallel with the times. You've almost kind of doubled down on those issues. It's become almost more important for you.
That's probably true, but that's because I think I'm right.
You're right in what way?
Well,
that you have a right to talk about those things.
Well, yeah, I have a right to those things, and I there's jokes that I certainly stand by, and I can't look back and go, oh, sorry about that. I said that. I was only 50. But as you do get more progressive, maybe, and milder and changed, what usually happens is the things you used to do look worse. What I do is I try and get more offensive. So when I look back, I go, oh, wasn't I kind when I was 45? That's a joke.
I was going to say that you are joking now.
He's playing with him, isn't he? He's playing with him. It's great. During the interview, Ricky also made the correct observation that you can't seem to joke about anyone these days. Oh, apart from the working classes.
I think working class people get blamed for a lot because the waters are muddied, and that's done on purpose. It's to keep us down, and I say us. It's to keep them down and fighting amongst each other.
When you say blamed.
Well,
blamed for what?
Well, I think people understand most power struggles. People understand why racism's wrong and why homophobia is wrong and why misogyny is wrong. But sometimes they're very disparaging about the working classes. It's the one thing that seems to be fine to take the mickey out of with no blowback at all. And I don't know why that is. But
Ricky also revealed his motivation behind that historic and masterful 2020 Golden Globes monologue, which I think really goes down as part of his legacy. And that's saying something, given this is the guy behind The Office. Watch.
Some of the riskiest comedy of your career has been delivered live to millions of people around the world, and a room full of some of the world's most famous film stars and directors and producers, when you were hosting 5 Golden Globe ceremonies between 2010 and 2020, I think. Yeah. Did you set out each time primarily to, puncture the pomposity of that world of celebrity and to expose some of the absurdities and what you saw as the hypocrisies of Hollywood?
Yes, and that got more honed and more targeted and more important and more liberating as I went along. Do I bite the hand that feeds me? Well, the answer is yes, because who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for the 200 egos in the room, the most privileged people on the planet? Or am I doing it for the 200 million people around the world watching who aren't winning a Golden Globe, who aren't multimillionaires? Of course I'm doing it for them. I'm the fat bloke on the couch eating potato chips watching this. And I played that card. I shouldn't be there. I purposely played the outsider. I walked out with a beer. I walked out, I didn't look like them. I didn't act like them. I didn't think like them. The truth is, I do know some of them. I have got things in common with some of them. I'm an actor, I'm an entertainer. I was there as a comedian. And I think that, again, particularly in British comedy, a stand-up is a court jester. We're down with the peasants, laughing at the king. You've got to be in the mud with them.
To my superstar panel, Kelly J. Keane, and our resident comedian, and so much more, Leo Kearse. So, Leo, first to you, obviously, on this. It was so obvious, right, wasn't it, that the BBC guy had a real problem with Gervais. Didn't really understand the point of comedy.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like he was being interviewed by a robot from some star system where they have no concept of humor. You know, he had that real sort of "you've been called into the HR manager's office" vibe to it. Like the BBC are the sort of compliance department for the whole of comedy. And the whole thing about comedy, I mean, I'm a comedian. I've had various cancellations, not as high profile as Ricky Gervais. You know, ones that actually cost me money instead of boosting my profile. But I've had various cancellations. I've been accused of being, you know, racist, homophobic, transphobic, just because I am racist, homophobic, and transphobic. I thought this was a free country, but you know, these sorts of cancellations are brutal, and you know, comedy doesn't need to be policed. When we go out on stage and perform, we're performing in front of a jury. If the audience finds something distasteful, if they find it, you know, nasty or mean-spirited or you know, genuinely sort of homophobic, misogynist, transphobic, all the rest of it, they won't laugh. They won't laugh. You can't laugh at something that's not, you know, you can't really laugh out of cruelty or malice. You know, it's laughter's an involuntary response, and it's a sort of joyful, warm, communal thing. You know, you think left-wing people might be more in favour of it, but we don't need to be policed. We've got the jury in front of us, so I don't know why people need to, you know, stick their noses in and be like, "Oh, this is what you're saying is bad," and you know, and this is what. And when they read it out, your jokes, it's always like, you know, a joke is never going to sound good when it's read out like a barrister reading it out in a court. Like,
okay, well, can I do that right now? Can I do that right now? Because the thing I think that really pissed off the left, right, Kelly J, with Ricky Gervais was when he came out as a TERF. And I'm sure for you it was a great moment because it was in the 2022 Netflix special Supernature. And that was still, I mean, I know you'd been going for years at that point, but still relatively early in the piece, I guess. He made jokes about trans women, such as referring to them as the new women, the ones with beards and cocks. And it obviously created that real backlash, didn't it, that the BBC was leaning into. But it was important, I think, culturally. Him and who was, you know, and the other guy, Dave Chappelle, you know, that they were the two big moments when Netflix actually said, no, we're not going to bow to the trans mob. It felt like a moment where culture sort of turned.
Yes, I mean, obviously, publicly, they both said stuff. I mean, privately, I'm pretty sure neither of them ever thought that women could have penises. But it was very welcome when Gervais came out and said it, because I love the bloke. I just think he's just a marvel. You know, he makes me proud to be British. And he's so like, he's the jokes that we privately tell, right? His sense of humor is the same as my family's sense of humor. And it's the right to the sort of the white knuckle kind of comedy where if you can, I say to my kids all the time, you can be as offensive as you want to be, but you have to make it funny. If it's not funny, it's just offensive. And I think that's what you know, like Leo said, if your audience is laughing, then you're a comedian and you're doing a great job. And that's kind of it. The content of it, I don't really care about, but Ricky Gervais makes me laugh. So I guess I'm all on side.
Indeed. It was a shame that he had to go to the BBC for that interview, but in some ways it really exposed them. But look, great to have both of you. Leo, where can we find your original YouTube channel? You know, the one that's been going for 5 years. Come on, let's get on board. Plug away.
So it's on YouTube. If you go to Leo Kearse, if you just search for Leo Kearse or just Angry Scottish Man, you'll find it. And I'm doing a comedy tour this year if it doesn't get cancelled. So you can come and see me live. Come and see me do some jokes that might actually offend you.
And Kelly J, you're on YouTube as well, because I was reading earlier, you actually responded to the video which I had posted of myself and Liz Truss and Connor Tomlinson at CPAC, and I didn't realise this. You said you were supposed to be a keynote speaker too, but you weren't allowed into Australia.
I'm wrong. Well, I'm wrong about it. I think it was last year when Liz Truss. So
yes,
I thought it was a video, and then I another comment. I was like, oh no.
She was allowed back, so they obviously allowed her back in. But you
Yeah, they didn't grant me a visa. They made me wait weeks. I think it was supposed to take 21 days. It took 6 weeks, and then they said, "Oh, the event is gone now anyway." So yeah, I'm
Crazy.
a bit banned at the moment from Australia.
Crazy. But look, at Kelly J. Keane on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Brilliant superstar panel, Leo Kearse, Kelly J. Keane. Great pleasure. And we are going to reveal today's greatest Britain Union jackass in just one moment. But first, I want to get to your comments on this hot button issue, which we have been debating today and is dividing the right over whether Laila Cunningham is an appropriate choice to be the Reform UK mayoral candidate, given she is Muslim. Simon Brandy 9662 says, I understand your skepticism over Laila Cunningham, Dan, but honestly, she doesn't seem very religious. Judge her on her actions and what she says. But Mark Wagstaff says, in counter to that, the problem with Muslim politicians is that for them, it's faith and tribe before country. And of course, we have seen that with Shabana Mahmood. SRY, on a similar theme, says, Dan O'Dan, she will never show you who she is until she is elected as London Mayor, and then it will be too late. Ant Middleton or Susan Hall for London Mayor. Anthony Moss says, Ant Middleton has bravely served his country, exposing himself to severe danger. Something VR says, Laila Cunningham won't go on your show. Please, 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 Dan, let's have an interview with Ant Middleton soon. And yes, I was in communication with Ant earlier today. As soon as he is back in London, we are going to be doing that. Juliet Johnson says, it's not that she's female, but we've seen and lived through an Islamic mayor, and it's been a massive snare culturally to our great historical city of London. Mirror 8933 says, one who recites the Quran practices Islam. One who reads the Quran leaves Islam. And Craig Creasy, thank you, Craig, says, Dan, love your show, watching every day. You show the truth, not like the MSM that cannot be trusted, the Joe Rogan of England. Well, that is much appreciated. Thank you. Although getting a bit of backlash today, it has to be said. But, you know, I'll always be honest with you, and most people won't. And I think most Reform UK supporters probably think Laila Cunningham seems decent and understands that she's quite a good woman in a lot of ways, but would prefer to not have a Muslim candidate running against Sadiq Khan. That's my sense, but obviously time will tell, and we will continue the debate. Okay, a reminder of your Union Jackass nominees. Jeremy Corbyn, nominated by It's Only Me 44, given his position over Venezuela. Mike Tapp, nominated by Sarah Booth for being roasted on multiple TV shows over immigrant phones. And Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable of the West Midlands Police, nominated by MC Blokey Bloke, who says, what is most frightening is I do not think they see anything wrong in what they did. And the results are in with just 2% of the vote, Mike Tapp. The runner-up with 25%, Jeremy Corbyn. But this is an overwhelming win for someone who isn't really a household name, but this has infuriated you quite rightly. Chief Constable Craig Guilford of the West Midlands Police, today's Union Jackass. And your greatest Britain, on a similar theme, it's Ant Middleton, nominated by Home House 42, who says London needs a mayor for London. No bias, no mystery for London. Okay, we're moving over to Substack now for the uncancelled after show, www.outspoken.live to sign up. Meghan Markle's as ever disaster has been exposed in excruciating detail as the fake Duchess launches a pathetic MSM fightback. Will reveal the truth with US royal YouTube sensation P. Dinosaur. At this stage, we come off YouTube, we move to Substack to continue the conversation, www.outspoken.live. A couple of quick things. Remember, we are now available as a podcast. Please do subscribe on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, actually. And also hit subscribe right here on YouTube too. It's totally free and it really helps the show. We'll be back with you live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.